Good evening. Ever presidential media chat of President Muhammadu Buhari. It is a pleasure for me personally to have the opportunity of having this conversation along with a number of journalists who are here today with our President Muhammadu Buhari. There are tons of issues that Nigerians have asked, and some they're waiting to ask, and they're expecting answers to all of these questions. So we're expecting that Mr. President has all the answers to all the questions that we will be asking today. Well, I will not waste too much time in introducing or going too far with this introduction, so I will start by first acknowledging the fact that we have seated here this evening the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari. Good evening and welcome to your media chat.
Thank you very much.
So I will then use the opportunity to introduce my colleagues who are fellow journalists who are here. I will start with the lady on the panel, the only one today, Dr. Ngozi Anyebunam, who is a writer, a journalist, and former member of the editorial board of Champion Newspapers and also Daily Times. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you.
And also sitting next to him is Manir Dang Ali, who was a journalist with the BBC and now the editor-in-chief of the Daily Trust. Manir, great to have you on the panel. And just sitting on my right-hand side is Mbaga Isine, who is a journalist that has worked with NTA, then the Punch newspaper, and now he is with the online newspaper, Premium Times, as the regional editor. Ibanga,
really?
Great to have you.
Thank you very much.
So, let us start, Mr. President. I will say that Nigerians fell in love with you at the beginning of the year when the campaign was really very intense. And one of the things that they said they fell in love with was the fact that you stand as a man of integrity and you stand against corruption, that in your own words, you said, we'll kill Nigeria if we do not kill corruption. Now the nation has signed on the dotted line, we're married to you, and you're married to us. According to you, you belong to all of us, and you belong to nobody. So having said that, we're looking at the period of the honeymoon. The honeymoon has been on for a while now, 7 months to be precise. I wonder how long that would last. But talking about corruption, to be precise, Mr. President, how do you think we are doing with the fight against corruption now?
I think we are doing quite well, considering the circumstances. Firstly, I think this will be best illustrated by my personal experience. 30 years ago, when I was in uniform, and I found myself here as the head of state of Nigeria, we collected those that are perceived to be corrupt and put them in protective custody. And we told them that they are guilty until they can prove themselves innocent. Now I am here in a different form, in a multi-party democratic system, and the nations that we are looking forward for their cooperation under the circumstances we find ourselves, security-wise, economic-wise, even morally, the only acceptable system to them is those suspected of being corrupt are innocent until they are proved guilty. Having said that, we have been lucky to find some documents where public funds were diverted into personal pockets. We have some documents where Nigerian crude oil was lifted illegally, and the proceeds were put into some personal accounts instead of the federal government accounts. And of course, we have started going to court. As we get evidence, written evidence, we are taking those people to court. And for whatever is in the court, we cannot comment until we see what they do with the documents we have presented and how the Nigerian Ministry of Justice under the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice taking our constitution into account, see how we can get out of it. But there are terrible cases of corruption, and we can only appeal to Nigerians to be patient.
Okay, Mr. President, you know that some members of your government have said that some money has been collected from those who were found to be corrupt and money have been taken back. How much, and why are we not finding names of those who were deemed corrupt, who we have been able to get the money back from them?
I've already told you our main constraint, that eventually the persons have to find themselves in court. And under whatever circumstances, we cannot prejudge what the court will do. But the document we are going to submit and how the government will react to it through the Ministry of Justice is what we have to develop the patience to do. Because once we go to court, then we should keep our mouths shut. Nothing wrong, I believe, in raising issues, but then we cannot determine issues while they are still in court.
Does that mean that no money has been recovered from the stolen funds?
Money has been recovered. But the fact that we are, whatever we recover, we have to end up in court, because I feel personally as a president, Nigerian are entitled to know the truth. And the truth will be what the court have discovered by the submission made to them in terms of documentation, and the documentation including the bank statements where money is recovered, where it was lodged, when it was lodged, how much and which source, whether it is money from NNPC or money from Custom and Excise first, or money directly, from Central Bank. When we do that, I think Nigerians then may feel a bit better.
Okay, that's it.
Yes. Mr. President, thank you for the privilege of having us here. Still on corruption. I hear it all the time, that what we have now is just a tip of the iceberg. And so I'm just wondering, because this is crime, and when you let it go so far, the trail goes cold. So I'm just wondering whether we are not picking people, one by one, very carefully, because this is Nigeria. You said it. If we don't kill corruption, it kills us. Is there a way to raise the level of outrage in Nigeria? It can be done. I don't know where the National Orientation Agency is today, to let Nigerians see the direct link between corruption and the state of their lives. For every corrupt big officer, there are secretaries who worked under him. There are bank officers who worked with him. These people will happily and voluntarily give information, very solid information. What we have now, I agree also, is a tip of the iceberg. And sooner than later, the trails will go cold. And it becomes business as usual again. The other thing I would like to say is, there's EFCC and there's ICPC. I haven't seen any, I don't know, maybe it's been happening, but we who are not in government do not know. But I haven't seen any turnaround in terms of philosophy, or you carrying them along with your burning vision about anti-corruption. I see you like carrying on a crusade, like a lone voice, and they are a bit reluctant. That's my perception. And that's the perception of a lot of us out there. Is there no way to rejig these two places? Call it another name, bring new people, or train the old ones. I don't know what can happen, but I am saying that we can't have EFCC as it used to be and fight the new battle with your new vision.
Well, this is It's a nasty situation we find ourselves. We have to be very sure of the documents we get. We have to cross-check with the banks, sometimes across the countries. We have to cross-check records. For example, in NNPC, which ship loaded, where, what is the record in terms of the amount of crude it needs, what is the destination, what is the form of payment, is there an agreement or just an order from the top? All these you have to be sure, but because when you go to the courts, those that are taken before the court, they are people of substance, and they used to be people of influence, and I assure you they will get the best lawyers to defend them because they can afford to pay. And it is a work that we have done. When I say we, I mean the government parastatal like the EFCC, you mentioned the ICPC. Is the amount of work they have done, maybe supervised by the Attorney General, to make sure that a thorough job has been done in terms of submitting foolproof documents that will earn respectful prosecution. That has to be done because what we have been doing as government, we cannot, I'm sorry, it's a stage where we cannot reveal it. You can say, okay, from the time ICPC was put in place to now, how many people have they successfully prosecuted?
Yes.
How many people ICPC successfully prosecute? If you do that, maybe you didn't have even the patience to keep quiet, you will just condemn them outright. But now we are being very thorough because we made the accusation. Therefore, we have to prove in the court of law that those that are corrupt, we have enough documents, if possible, the amount of money, in which currency, even maybe the shipping line that take in terms of NPC, and then if it is central bank, under which governor of central bank, when, whether he received order directly from the president, or whether he used his initiative between himself and some ministers and transfer $100 million or billions of naira. So I think by the end of the first quarter of next year, I think you will be kept busy informing Nigerians of what progress has been made.
Okay. Manu. Yes.
How far, Mr. President, are you willing to go in this fight? Is it right to the top, or are we stopping at the current time the NSA and other former ministers?
Well, he has just quoted what I said when I was inaugurated, that I am for everybody, I don't belong to anybody. I saw by the Holy Quran that I will defend the Constitution, and whatever belongs to Nigerians, if anybody will appropriate such a thing, will attempt to get the documents and will prosecute them. And it's up to them to prove themselves innocent before the court. I told you I have experiences when I just mentioned the words, a decree is signed and people go. I knew eventually some of them got the property back, whether it is their own property or not. But the important thing was that at that time, we didn't put anybody above the law. And this time around, I assure you, we are not going to put anybody above the law.
And as you said, we are soon going to see more of these corruption cases in court. You did mention stolen, or rather crude oil money getting into accounts where it shouldn't go to. When are we going to see more of that? Because the crude oil is where the money is. Some people say, well, even the current one about the National Security Advisor's Office is just a small matter in the big issue that all this corruption fight is going to be.
Yeah, that's the problem about the NNPC, is the is the involvement of the international institutions, financial, shipping lines, insurance companies. It is true, it's the tip of the iceberg. Some of these developed countries where the money are lodged, their financial institutions are involved. There are banks, maybe they are custom and excise, but they will work on paper. So ship of this make, according to the insurance papers filled in, has brought, say, 500,000 tons of, say, Bonny Light or Aqua Ibon crude and so on. It's costing about, say, $15 million. It went into a certain account rather than federal government account. Then you have to ask for the cooperation of those countries to give you those shipping documents and maybe the bank account of the country where the money went before you can make your own prosecution in the country. You just have to do it that way, because this is what the system accepts. This is what the system of the countries we are requiring their cooperation accept. We can't do it on our own. It's not just like I told you, the military regime, where we have tribunals in about the 6 geopolitical zones, and then we provide documents, and people were jailed.
So it may take years.
I suspect it will take years, because we are appealing to the countries to please ask their institution to cooperate with us, because Nigeria is virtually on its knees.
Mr. President, when you were campaigning, you came out as a man of integrity, impeccable integrity as it were. And you said you were going to declare your asset, what you're worth. And then you did. But at best, they were vague. Properties were mentioned and without specific names or value. And people would have wanted to see a more transparent and clearer picture of what you are worth. Mr. President, when do you intend to make full declaration, as it were, based on your promise?
Yes, when you people harassed me so much, I told you that I have declared my asset 4 times. It started during Murtala administration. When we were lined up on a corridor from General Obasanjo downwards, all those who are governors or who are members of the Supreme Military Council, who are members of the Executive Council. And I don't know whether it's a blessing or what, I was in all the 3 at a time, differently. So I found myself at the end, there are officials from Ministry of Justice with files. You make your declaration. And since then, somehow that declaration found itself in the Constitution of Nigeria. I declared when I first had my political appointment as governor of North-Eastern State. Then I declared when I became member of Supreme Military Council and Minister of Petroleum, and when I was leaving for War College in 1979. Of course, when I became a head of state, again in the military, I declared. But when I was removed from head of state, I did not declare. I ended up in detention for 3¼ years, and I don't think I was asked to declare, because I think those who put me there know what I was worth. They didn't ask me to declare. But when I came out, got into politics, and became president, I declared. So I declared at least 4 times. And I understand that if you want to see my declaration, you have got the constitutional right to go to the one of the government, I think, account commission or what, to go and ask that you want the declaration asset of such an officer who held public office. But I declared 4 times. I mentioned which banks I borrowed money and developed which plot I was given. I declared, I could even remember declaring the number of cattle I had then and cars, you know. According to the form, I declared. All these declarations were deposited in the Ministry of Justice. So if Ministry of Justice could not produce my declarations and how I got about my properties, then they too should answer some questions. Why do they keep the declarations of public officers.
But we had made attempts, and then they say we should go to Code of Conduct Bureau to get them, and then get this. And when we got there, they said if the president, unless they have an express permission from the president to make it public, it can be made public. So we were being told to, and the president.
If I'm asked, why me alone? Why are all the other people who are governors and ministers and so on? I said I declared 4 times, yes. And I certainly don't have to ask them. I think they must have browbeaten you. I don't have to ask them to give you my asset declaration. I think you have the constitutional role to go and make yourself known that you are representing such a media.
We wrote a freedom of information request asking, and then now please tie into that.
Yeah.
Because it has to do with this steel corruption, the fight against corruption. Now you are perceived to be fighting this corruption lopsidedly. People from the one party, that's the perception of a lot of people, and even the people who belong to that party and the previous government. Whereas there are also people in your party who also have this thing on their necks. And there are some of them are in your cabinet. Mr. President, tell us, why are they there? And these other people are in the court and being arrested.
In the court?
Yes, in the court. Some others are in court and these other ones are in the cabinet.
Yeah, well, I haven't been a Democrat for how long now? Since April 2002. I don't think I tolerate corruption. I don't think I have picked anybody that I know would embarrass my government. But if you have got any evidence about any of my ministers, I accept responsibility for the 36 ministers I have, although I have 24 ministries. I think if you've got the facts, you have got the right as a Nigerian citizen to take them to court. To say you don't want ABC in cabinet because they've got a case in court. I don't think I have taken anybody among the ministers who has got a case on court on corruption. Tell me one out of the 36.
So what we are saying is the issue is that some of them have been arrested by the government and then they are being prosecuted, you know, and they feel it is only one-sided. No, not ministers. Not ministers. Some other persons who were in previous government, and some of these people who are in the government were also in government, and they there's a perception that they were corrupt, and then even some television networks showed clips and brought things they call evidence. I'm not in the court, I'm not a judge. I cannot claim that they were exact or they were true evidences or stuff. But they were on the public domain. Newspapers carried the stories, and
I don't know where I was, how I missed that. But I know conscientiously I do not pick any person that has been in court for corruption. I don't think I would have deliberately made that mistake.
So in essence, Mr. President is saying that if you find any member of your cabinet,
right,
you will definitely sack them?
Certainly. Not only sacking, you know, I will insist that the case go back to the court.
Okay.
I will certainly do that.
Mr. President, sir.
Yes.
The members of your cabinet, how many of them have declared their assets? Because they're also in position to manage a lot of money.
Yes, well, that is a constitutional issue, as I said.
Have they declared their assets?
They are supposed to declare assets. I don't have to line them up. They know they have to declare their assets.
Okay. Who is going to make sure that they do it?
They will make sure they do it themselves because they are a constitutional issue.
Even the governors, I haven't heard. We all focused on you and your assets.
You want me to do the dirty job?
We need to hear that your ministers have also declared their assets.
All right, now let's move on very quickly, Your Excellency. Let's look at the issue of security. And when we talk about security or insecurity in Nigeria, one of the sore points that continue to plague this nation which President Obama, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, David Cameron, everybody all around the world, they've continued to talk about it consistently. It's the issue of the Chibok girls. And recently, we've heard that there is a technical defeat of Boko Haram. But we know for a fact that Mr. President did say during the election and even after the election that until, I think it was at the swearing in, Your Excellency, that you said that Boko Haram will be defeated when we sort out the issue of all the people that were kidnapped by Boko Haram, including the Chibok girls, and you got a loud ovation for that. When are we going to bring the girls back? And what is this government doing in terms of ensuring that, yes, you've combed Sambisa Forest and everywhere, and you're able to get them back?
I think this is about the third time I will answer this question on Chibok girls. I could recall mentioning that some leadership of Boko Haram, perceived leadership of Boko Haram, wanted to make contact. But we insisted on establishing the bona fide of the so-called Boko Haram leadership before we can agree to negotiate with them on what terms would they release the girls to us so that we can take them to their parents and back to their school. That's number one. Number two, we want to be sure, you know, that they are complete, 209 I think, and that they are safe and sound. But what we know so far by attacking some of the locations in Bizafur and so on, no Chibok girl has been recovered. They must have dispersed them all over the place. And we wanted, as far as humanly possible, although some of the parents are not desperate, they rather see their grave, see them in their grave, than the condition some of them are alleged to have been in. We are still keeping our option open that if a credible leadership of Boko Haram can be established and they tell us where those guys are, we are prepared to negotiate with them without any precondition. This we have made it absolutely clear. But while they are keeping the Chibok girls, they must not get away with the idea that we will not attempt to secure the rest of Nigeria.
Okay, so does Mr. President believe, or do you have intelligence that confirms that, yes, the girls are still alive and they are in the possession of Boko Haram? Do you have that intelligence?
That's what I'm looking for. I said we are looking for a credible Boko Haram leadership that will convince us that the girls are there and are alive. If any Boko Haram terrorist come out and said he is a leader and that he knows where Chibok girls are, we can't automatically believe him.
But what about our intelligence, both military and civil intelligence through SSS and the rest of them? Do they have any information that confirms to Nigerians, and especially the office of the president, that we know for a fact that Chibok girls are alive and they are okay and they are in this location or that location or wherever it is they are? Do we have any information whatsoever?
Not credible information. I am working with Niger, with Chad, with Cameroon, and I assure you that the question of Chibok girls is all in our minds for even humanitarian reasons. But there is no firm intelligence where those girls are physically are and what condition they are in. But what we believe from our intelligence, they keep shifting them around so that they are not taken by surprise and they get freed. And they are not kept, the whole lot of them, not in one place. And we don't know how many divisions they made of them and where they are.
So in essence, you don't have any cogent intelligence, reliable intelligence to say Chibok girls are still alive.
And they are in one place. That's right. That's the honest truth.
Okay. I'll let you take the next question on security, Ngozi.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, still on this case about, in fact, Nigeria, we can safely say, is at war and spending a whole lot of money. The economic activities of Nigeria today are riveted to the war zone. And therefore, it's people's opinion that whatever happens in terms of routing the terrorists, whether it's technical defeat or whatever, that we make sure that there is no relapse, that they do not come back. Because we've been having back and forth, you know, and part of that is the issue of the IDPs. I have heard that they are coming back, they are going back to their origins, where they came from, by the first quarter of 2016. And when I heard that, I was a bit worried, sir, because they are very vulnerable, that's for sure. But more importantly is that this country is as strong as its weakest link, and they are our weakest link. Are they going back to exactly what they left? What's the strategy in taking them back? Are they going to be resettled in some secure places? Or are they going to continue to be like sitting dogs and they are going to keep picking them? And each time one person dies over there, the rest of us are dying in degrees. And once you send them back there and these people move back, it's easy for them to move back. And the other thing is, has there been some kind of psychological counseling with these people before they go back? Because they go back and they are there, they don't even understand what's going on. Many of them are cannon fodder for the same Boko Haram. That's the very tragic irony. They use some of them and they willingly join, follow them. So how do we really integrate them and they feel like they are part of us, even though they've gone back, and in their heads they understand what is going on and that they are part of the fight, and that they can, you know, blow the whistle on whoever is strange in their community? As a matter of fact, are they going back to the same community as was constituted, or is there some new configuration for them that will be more secure?
Yeah, well, perhaps you know there are about 2 million internally displaced persons in different camps, but mostly in Borno State. I was made to understand over 70% of those are women and children. And over 65% of the children are orphaned. Their parents have been killed. Some of them don't even know from where they are. This is how pathetic the situation is. Before this government came in, there was an effort where some Nigerians contributed money, the Dangotes, Lieutenant General T.Y. Danjuma, and a number of people. And about 25 billion was realized. There was a committee that was to supervise how that money can be utilized, you know, to rehabilitate the IDPs. And if you could recall, within the week I was sworn in, I went to Chad and Niger. I was to go to Cameroon when I was asked by G7 to go and meet them in Germany. Within the week, I went and saw them, and I was impressed with the goodwill they have for Nigeria on that issue. And on my coming back, we sent our shopping list in terms of the infrastructure destroyed, burnt schools, burnt health centers, burnt towns, and so on. And they promised to help, so we sent it. Members of G7 and others have sent training teams to our men, have given some hard and soft military wear, and we are directing them to meet mostly Borno state government officials, that can take them to various local governments where there was this instance. And what I deliberately did was to create the impression that we want cash. But what we recommend is for those countries that intend to help to send people to verify and quantify the damage done to the infrastructure, and then volunteer what they will do. And then some coordination is created. I think the worst one was the one about the orphan children. We are trying to find out where they come from, see if we can take them back to their villages, repair their schools, put equipment, get teachers, and try to re-establish neighborhood so they can get out of the trauma eventually. Yes. So that they don't lose educational opportunities. This is what we are doing. We have got the money, as I said, with the committee headed by General Danjuma. We have got the undertaking of G7 and some countries. And I assure you that some progress is being made on the ground. Yeah.
But if I may just very quickly add to that, Your Excellency, in Benin, for example, there are a few hundred of young kids who are there. And we don't have any information regarding the federal government putting any money to assist the individual who is a church leader who has decided to create this camp for them. We don't have any information. Is there anything the federal government is doing about that camp and all the other camps that litters the country?
Yes, the Benin one is, I think, is a good intention by some church organization that went a bit sour. Some of the children were taken through Plateau State, and the governor came and saw me, Oshomole. He came along, the IG was invited, Inspector General of Police, and they have forgotten the third person. And what we ask is that those children, those that can know from where they come from, let them get their names. And some of the parents, in fact, went to Benin and saw their children. Oh. And yes, we thought some of the parents were so poor that they don't even have the money to pay for their transport. But some went, they identified them and helped to identify others, and were taken back to Borno State or Yobe or Adama. But those that preferred to stay with that church in Benin, you know, they were allowed to do so, but their parents came, saw them, and they agreed that their children were in safe hands. So I'm in touch with the IG, the governor, and one other person, I think, that has got relevance with this. So the federal government knows about it and is doing something about it.
But in terms of funding them, is the federal government putting its money where its mouth is to fund and to ensure that those children have good education and have a future to look forward to?
We are doing it through the governor Oshomole, because he was kind enough to get a school where they will be put in schools. He didn't want them to be permanent refugees, and he shared our own idea. Identify which class they are, distribute them among schools, possibly for administrative convenience within Benin City itself, or where that church is. That church has a school, and the church put it in the school. So they will put them in the classes where they are supposed to be, and then the government helps in their feeding and other administrative support. So we are sure, we are aware about this, and we are prepared to take them back to their original states, whether it is Adama, Yobe, or Borno, and put them back with their parents and in their villages.
Okay.
Sir, the recent crackdown on the Shiites in Zaria has drawn a lot of concerns by commentators, including just yesterday the Borno Elders Forum, who are saying, look, if this is not well managed, it could lead to another problem. They are actually saying that there are similarities between what is happening or what happened in Zaria and what happened much earlier with the Boko Haram insurgency, Mohammed Yusuf, and all of that narrative. And there's been this quiet from your end about the whole matter. And of course, the people of Zaria, a lot of them are sort of fed up with the conduct of the Shiites, who they felt were like a government within a government. But many, like the human rights groups, are saying that, look, this is an overkill. So many people killed over an incident of right of way. I don't know what you will have to say to the concerns being raised about this issue.
Mr. President answer that. Yeah, Mr. President, please go ahead.
Yeah, well, certainly I know something about it. I ought to. In fact, I must know something about it. When it happened, I was in touch with the governor of Kaduna State. You know, it happened in one state, in one of the 36 states. Interestingly, the president of Iran spoke to me about it. But I told him that as a government, we have a system. This accident happened in one of the cities. The governor has physically visited the area. We have a system of investigation. The military that was involved, too, has a tradition of investigation. And I, as the head of federal government, I have to wait for the official report before I can come out as head of the government, federal government, and make a statement. So I'm allowing the army and the Kaduna State government to submit their own reports of inquiry. Meanwhile, it doesn't mean that the police, the SSS that are not directly involved are not doing their own part of constitutional role of finding out really what actually happened.
So that means there won't be the inquiry that some are calling for, a federal inquiry into the matter, because they are saying that some of the officers are involved. I mean, you can't ask the police maybe to investigate the army and all of that.
No, there's no way I can ask the police to investigate the army. I think that will be a misnomer. It wouldn't even happen the other way around. But all I know is that whether it is the police, the military, and the civil authorities, whether an incident where lives were lost and property, there is a standard way of investigation. Depending on how serious it is, if it is very serious, a judicial inquiry may be the most acceptable thing for the society. And then people from all directions were asked to come and give evidence, you know.
So, Mr. President, how serious do you think this is for the nation in terms of our security and the future of the potential future that this could portend for us?
No, it's unfortunate and extremely serious. How can any group will create a state within a state? I don't want to speak about it in detail now. I better leave it until I receive the inquiries. But there are a number of clips I saw where some excited teenagers were virtually hitting the chests of generals, you know, putting roadblocks, burning vehicles, and pelting them with missiles.
As a general, do you feel infuriated?
Very much so, but I realize my position. I'm now a sitting duck.
Okay, but having said that, Mr. President, but do you think it is justifiable? Because in the media, we also saw in social media and traditional media a number of images of young people that were shot dead, and some of them, you just wonder. The number of deaths seem to be quite worrying.
No, you can't justify casualties on that scale. You can't justify it. But to be fair to both sides, you have to wait for the inquiry, and then you tell the public. A lot of them, you tell them what they know. For example, I understand people from the neighborhood in Zaria gave a press briefing in Kaduna, isn't it?
Yes, they did.
About 2 or 3 days ago. They called the press and they told them what agony they were going through in the last 5, 10 years, 15 years.
So for you, Mr. President, just to wrap this up very quickly then, who would you be expecting this report from in terms of inquiries? One, a lot of people expect that the federal government will have an independent inquiry. The soldiers who were said to have been attacked cannot do an inquiry that will be deemed as fair and balanced. The police, who's part of the security agencies of Nigeria, will not be expected to carry out an inquiry that civil society would accept as fair and balanced. Civil society as well might be deemed as maybe a bit partial and emotive about it. So where is the federal government's inquiry coming from?
I expect a sort of judicial inquiry by Kaduna State government. Because it happened in Kaduna, in one of the cities, and it has been there for the last 20 years, from what I've been reading from your papers, for about 20 years. And they will occupy a federal highway, sometimes from Kano to Kaduna. This is what I heard, and fortunately for me, I have never been, in that mess. But a number of people that talk to me, for example, from Jaji to Kaduna, it will take them 2.5 hours or so. And then there were all sorts of allegations, which I would rather wait for the report.
Sorry, we just have to move this very quickly because yes, you will take the last question on security, and then we'll move on to the next subject very quickly.
Okay, Mr. President. You have said that the war on Boko Haram has been technically won, and the Minister for Information also said the same thing. But on Sunday, these people unleashed terror. Borno and Adamawa, massive people were being killed, and they're still trying to come back, use suicide bombers and the rest. Can you conveniently and truthfully say that this war, whether technically or otherwise, is being won?
Yes, when I said the war was technically being won, I mentioned why. I said their capacity to conventionally attack institutions, whether it is police posts, barracks, as they used to, including in Maiduguri, as you know, has been stopped. But their use of IEDs, improvised explosive device, has assumed a proportion that has virtually overwhelmed the government, in the sense that they get girls 15 years and below in hijab and wrap them up, with explosive. Even the day before yesterday, I think they did it in Yola, in Maiduguri, and somewhere, and killed about 100 people.
In that case, some countries have banned the use of hijab, who are also fighting insurgency or terrorists. Do you intend to go that way? Because if people wear those things and package bombs and kill so many people, then it calls for concern.
If you go to Maiduguri, you will find out that in motor parks, sometimes in the market, they put people in strategic places with these detectors. They are doing that.
So banning hijab is not an option?
No, banning hijab is not enough, but hijab will have to be banned if this continues. It has to be done because it's the safety of people generally. Because the indoctrination they go through to kill themselves, because that's the ultimate. If people don't mind losing their life, that's extremely serious.
To support what you said, Mr. President, in fact, more and more of the time recently, we've found out that it's basically girls who are the society, because of that, the cover,
Yes.
they have the cover, so that's why they are using more of them. So you may have to really consider it urgently. What I wanted to say was to add to what he said about the potential danger among the Shiites. Even as the investigation is going on, sir, is there some kind of intelligence in their community to even look further into their way of life and what, who knows is going on?
What has been happening is unacceptable. I have just mentioned that I understand in the people of Kaduna State, especially Zaria, where their headquarters, they went, they briefed the press about 2 or 3 days ago. And they give a full briefing of what they have been going through in the last 20 years. In the last 20 years. And if you go into your record, you find out what happened. You are in Babangida's administration. What happened during General Abacha administration.
There were some uprisings.
Exactly. So it's not a new thing, especially for the people in Kaduna State. But it has never been so serious.
But now that they've seen the activities of Boko Haram, I'm wondering if we shouldn't take them even more serious.
Yes, but still we have to have the patience and the restraint to wait for the thorough investigation, judicial inquiry, and so on. And for the military one, using my experience, is a standard where there is a breakdown of law and order, and where the military involved, there is a format which they have to arrive at, and hold the commander responsible in the place. And if you notice, the general officer commanding the 1st Division in Kaduna, he has been making, a deeper explanation on the television. I have seen one of the action they are taking. And the military is the most less likely to accept breakdown of law and order, because in the end they suffer more than any group. Look at what is happening in the northeast.
Yes, yes.
The casualty, the army is suffering.
That's why we're afraid.
Okay, Mr. President, let's move on to economy. We'll most likely come back to the issue of security, and may I use this opportunity to just let our viewers know that Mr. President will be taking your questions in the last 30 minutes of this conversation from about 8:30. Your questions you can send via Twitter. The hashtag to use in defining it to make it easier for us to be able to take those questions will be hashtag Ask Buhari, one word. Hashtag Ask Buhari, it's only one word. You can tweet at me, mine is Kaidia Kintemi, and you can tweet at Channels Television at Channels TV. Mr. President, coming to the issue of the economy, we'll come back to security later because it's a big issue for Nigerians as well as corruption. But on the economy, some of us are returnees from different parts of the world. And one of the things that worry us the most is what worry a lot of people who are doing business, bringing foreign direct investment into Nigeria. They want to be able to take their money out of the country. There is a big issue with our foreign exchange. Mr. President, we're at that point now where people are saying, should we be looking very seriously at devaluing Nigeria's currency, Naira? Would you support it? Would you approve it?
Well, there's two questions there. Would I support devaluation? Personally, I don't want to. Why? Why don't I want to support devaluation? Again, I have to digress here for you to understand the way I think. When we came in 1983, 84 to 85, we don't know how much debt Nigeria has accumulated in 4 years, 3 months of the Second Republic. And I was privileged to be part of Obasanjo's government. And I was in petroleum for 3 and a quarter years. And I know that the administration handed over a relatively secure economy and a physically secure country to Second Republic, with some foreign exchange, with some security in terms of less armed robbery, less fraud and so on. But by the time the military came back again, 1984, nobody knew how much Nigeria was owing. Don't talk about any foreign exchange, foreign reserve. It has disappeared. Now, the situation now is aggravated by the downturn in the petroleum industry. I think it's about now 35 to 37 $1 a barrel, $37 per barrel. And then we have this debt service of about 1.5 trillion naira. We have such commitments on the ground now, contract and so on. And we have to reorganize the NPC to make sure that we introduce treasury single accounts so that we will know what gets in and get out. Before, there were so many accounts. For example, about 45 accounts in NNPC alone. In the military, that means Army, Navy, Air Force, Ministry of Defense, about 70 accounts. Who can preside over that? Only God can do it. But then there is a way, treasury single account. Everybody must have only one number. If you are number one, you have number one. Then you can have A to Z. But everything goes to A. Whether it is A, X, or A, B, okay, you can find out, you can trace it. And you will be amazed. With that, we have moved about 1.5 trillion naira into the central bank. So these are the measures we are taking. But the insecurity in the country, the downturn in the petroleum industry, very unfortunate developments for this government. But they are a reality of the situation which we Nigerians have to face. And then the previous budgets, you please check your records. Over 90% were overhead. Which country can develop without capital projects? So people just sit and share money in government. No productivity, no capital projects. To hell with infrastructure, no power, no roads. We're in very, very bad shape.
Okay. We're in bad shape, Mr. President. Mm-hmm. Having said that, a lot of economists have said very clearly that the Naira cannot be consistently defended with very minimal resources that the nation has. Shouldn't we be seriously looking at devaluing the Naira? And if that is being looked at, will His Excellency, Your Excellency, would you approve it? Devaluation of the Naira.
I need to be convinced. If you devalue the Naira, against what? Against the dollar? Against sterling? Against yen? Against Deutschmark? Against French franc? How much of you see, your devaluation, if you seriously look at our state of development and the countries backed by IMF and World Bank that play around with currency devaluation, they are between developed countries that they compete in their goods and services. If they make it cheap with their currency, they sell more of their goods and services. And they keep their people employed and their factories open. We are importing, including toothpick. Mm-hmm. Don't forget, we have to stop 43 items from being imported, from getting foreign exchange, from rice to toothpick. Look at the style Nigerians have. If you are exporting textiles, we are exporting vehicle spare parts. Yes, we can devalue so that people can buy our spare parts, can buy our textiles, they can buy our goods and services. When we devalue, then we sell more, we employ more people, and we produce more.
Well, Your Excellency,
But we are on the receiving end.
Well, Your Excellency, we're in a situation now, whether you devalue or not, we're buying pounds for 400 naira plus. And the central bank is still saying, no, it's 190, 195, refusing to acknowledge the fact that even 199 does not get you a pound.
Well, let me tell you my argument. Let us find out what are our productive industries, which of our factories are open, what essential raw materials they need, what spare parts they need, what machinery do they need. Central bank, go and sit with them, with Trade and Investment Ministry, give them the foreign exchange we have. Those who want to buy imported rice and toothpick, let them go and look for the hard currency and buy it. That we have no alternative to that because we don't have the hard currency. We don't earn any hard currency now. What we have is hardly enough for us for the project we have already entered into agreement. We need power, steady power, so that people can afford, to welders, barbers, open factories, even security. We need some of the roads. Try driving from Apapa to Ibadan and see how many hours you will spend. No rail line. So we need power, railways, roads, and then we have to fight the insurgency. These are our priorities. Not people looking for money to bring rice and the latest textile dresses.
Your Excellency, that is a fantastic perception to have, but at the same time, what about those who want to bring business to Nigeria, who are saying that the CBN will not let you take your money? Even me, I don't have millions of dollars in my account, I don't. But at the same time, even the small amount of money that you have in your DOM account, you can't even withdraw from a bank. That's how much shortage we're experiencing in the country in terms of foreign exchange, in terms of foreign currency. It's as bad as getting petrol now.
Yeah, well, the central bank team, economically, they're in position to know better than I do. But what I do know that Treasury single accounts for the Naira that we impose, that has moved up money from FAS, from NNPC, so that we can, the government can finance itself locally. On foreign exchange, how much are we earning? We try and look in our priority, look after industries that are employing people and producing goods and services. I don't, I have to cross-check, not that I don't believe you, I have to cross-check whether people with hard currency in their accounts are not allowed to draw it.
There is none. That's the problem. Not that they're not allowed. I could give you a personal experience, Your Excellency.
Yes.
I was at one of the banks that I have accounts in just a couple of days ago. I am unable to withdraw something as simple as £200 from my account. I could not withdraw. This is money that I paid into my account months ago, but I cannot withdraw it because they said there is none. And I've kept in touch with the bank because this is important for this conversation. So the last few days, I've kept in touch with them to say, when will you be able to pay me my £200? And they're not able to because they said there is none.
I will ask the Governor of the Central Bank.
Okay. So please, if we can then...
There's a related issue of the banks now saying you cannot do any transactions with your card abroad. And it's a lot of pains for a lot of people, like students who are studying abroad, their parents paying in money, you can't use the cards abroad. Someone who has gone on some
I will ask
health issues.
to make a statement on that. What we understand, you know what happened in this country. There are a lot of people that want to take money out. and they use those cards. They even go to rural areas, get innocent people involved with a lot of cards, and they go out of the country and transfer money with it.
A related issue.
We have to get. I think some of the hard truths has to be told for people to understand.
Okay. A related issue is the subsidy. I mean, I know you don't believe in subsidy, but then some economists say, yeah, it's not subsidy, it's surcharge because of the inefficiency of the fact that Nigeria's refineries are not working and you have to keep importing, and then all the port issues and the shipping and all of that. And then there are some smart guys making lots of money out of this. It has continued under your regime. Are you considering maybe putting a stop to it? Because you can see it's as if the government is of two minds over the matter.
How I wish you can be as critical to the governments in the last 16 years. When I was in government, we had the 4 refineries working with a capacity of 450,000 barrels a day. The 400,000 barrels are Nigerian crude. We don't import anything, it's all Nigerian crude. And we were exporting average 100,000 barrels a day of refined product after satisfying home market. Now, as we are talking with you, none of these refineries is efficiently working. None. Again, we built more than 20 depots. We laid more than 3,500 line pipes. We have more than 6 pumping stations. We pump from Zaria to Gusau, from Zaria to Maiduguri, to Kano. All that infrastructure has been destroyed. Why? Why can't they even maintain what they inherited?
So does that mean the subsidy regime, I mean, this payment of over $1 trillion in air, will it continue, or are we going to see new refineries, whether by private sector or government or PPP?
The subsidy, but at the end of next quarter, we will not be talking of subsidy, because how much is the petroleum costing now?
They said it will be 15 naira less from 2 days from now.
50 kobo.
50 kobo less, sorry.
50 kobo. So
less.
really, you are not subsidizing anybody. It's so low, the cost of petrol is so low that you don't have to subsidize it.
Your Excellency,
It's fine, it's all level.
We're going through lean times with regards money coming in from petrol, but if that changes, does it mean we go back to subsidizing, or are we taking it away completely?
I am hoping our refineries will be functioning. Our first priority now, we can't do it overnight, is to get our refineries working. What is dedicated, 445,000 barrels per day, can be refined at home, and that will be at least 60% of our requirement. Then for the 40%, then we can do the swap.
But how long will them continue, sir? I'm talking of new refineries. I mean, even previous governments gave licenses, they never started. There is one in Lagos, they are talking of maybe in the next 2-3 years.
What is the previous government? I have just told you that they failed to maintain 4 refineries. They failed to maintain 3,000, about 500 line pipes. They failed to maintain the pumping stations. With the cost of petroleum barrel over 100 naira, over $100 per barrel, they failed to do it. Now it's costing about $30, $70. You are asking us, when are we going to do it? What question did you ask them then?
Well, they also ask questions. It's just that we have to move on, sir.
Okay, Ngozie's turn, please. Yeah, go ahead.
You just talked about spending 90% of our budget on overheads. And obviously, our mind immediately will go to wages. So that means that we have a bloated bureaucracy. And we are still talking about creating jobs.
Yes.
When you say creation of jobs, Mr. President, what do you have in mind? That's one question. The other question, you hinted on power. But power is so important that I would like you to really go into it. We are already calling somebody like your Minister Fashola, Minister for Infrastructure. But we would like Nigerians to listen to you, your philosophy, your vision. Mr. President, what were you thinking when you made him the minister of 3 ministries? We would like to hear your vision for him.
You see, I like the critics to the government to show more compassion. From myself downwards, we are all learned, we are all new. Look, when we came, there are 42 ministries with at least 42 permanent secretaries. Only God knows the number of directors. We have to cut it to 24. Ask 18 permanent secretaries to please go. And then try to have new permanent secretaries, juggle them and send them to ministries other than their own, those that remain. So the permanent secretaries were taking over. New ministers were taking over. I have just taken over. Then we have the budget. All these things take time. But, and this is a very serious matter, the country has to keep moving. Employment, from the time of our campaign and so on, we said agriculture and soil minerals are the quickest way where we can direct the able bodies. And our budget will show you. Other than education and security, agriculture, to make sure that you get machinery, you get fertilizer, you get input, you ask people to go back to the farm so that at least we can feed ourselves. If we don't import food, then a lot of substantial saving has been made. And then, of course, solid minerals. There are countries that are interested. Virtually, there are no solid mineral that you know which was not in Nigeria in commercial quantities, in one of the states or the other. There are countries that know about it, they are already here, and they are prepared to come. Our main problem is to secure this country so that people can come and do business without being abducted, without being killed, and so on. So we have got so much problem, but I assure you, the question of employment is necessary. And then the teachers. National Teacher Institute, Kaduna, and I think there is one in Ibadan. We are trying to mop up these unemployed youth, give them crash program in teaching, force them to teach in primary schools and junior secondary school, so that the quality of education would start from the bottom. All these things cannot be done overnight, but we have this plan and we have to start it to cut down the unemployment of graduates and then able bodies used in agriculture and soil minerals. And I assure you that Fashola is not made a super minister for nothing. The problem of power, Kayenji, then gas, stop layering, collect it, send it to Egbin and other power stations, and let us get power. Let us get the distribution. And we are even going into solar, so that by the time the distribution is done, which will take time and a lot of capital, solar, you can fix it in some of the villages, and all you have to do is just to plug in. So really, we understand our problem. We have taken into confidence those countries that are prepared to invest in us, in spite of our security situation. All we are doing through this budget is to articulate our position, and we will certainly go out by the second quarter, and we believe we will get the Chinese back to do the railways.
Okay. Your Excellency, we'll let Mbanga take his question on the economy.
Yeah.
Mr. President, when you came in, you showed enough enthusiasm for change, and you are change personified. But when we look at the 2016 budget, it seems nothing has changed. The National Assembly and the presidency are taking a huge chunk of that budget for foreign trips, maintaining a huge presidential fleet, exotic vehicles and stuff. Why is the change, sir?
Yeah, well, the change one is the TSA, Treasury Single Accounts. Now we know what is going what. The second one, when you mention vehicles, I have seen it in billions. All I know, the first thing I turned down is a 400 million bill for cars for the presidency. I turned it down. I said the vehicles I've been using are good enough for the next 10 years. Therefore, none for the presidency. But I understand there is a full protocol where when you have a meeting of heads of state and governments, you have to buy a vehicle. That I didn't go into detail. I answered it's going to cost some several million. As for the National Assembly, we are having problem with them in TSA. I said everybody has to subject himself to TSA as long as federal money is involved. But I understand the vehicles about 50 billion naira for vehicles. I think I will have to have a closed door meeting with them. I hope they haven't bought them yet. But after that, then again they collect money for vehicle allowances. I think that's a legitimate question.
Let us go back to the foreign exchange restriction. It was supposed to strengthen the naira. But now legitimate people who are doing business and they need the foreign exchange to go do business, people who are sick, Mr. President, people who have children in schools and they need to take money or get foreign exchange and go for treatment, people are dying. Business people are suffering. Are you aware of this? And when will this policy, the restriction be, at least lifted so that people could live their normal lives? Not all Nigerians are corrupt.
I'm sorry to cut in. It cannot be lifted because the money is not there. The money is not there. We have to do what is virtually online of Nigeria's life, the industries that have to keep people employed and go and produce the goods we badly need or we must need, and then do the infrastructure. Let's get the power. And it will be amazing how much people can save if the power works. And then secondly, the roads. But the most important thing, which we identified, even during the campaign, we identified 3 things. One, security. You just cannot manage the country if you don't secure it. This stealing of Nigerian crude, this abduction across the country, abduct people, ask for millions. Some are killed, some are not released. And then the Boko Haram itself. Now this IED that is causing casualties in hundreds by the week. You have to see how do you arrange or rearrange your priorities in question of securing the country, giving employment, and getting the economy to start moving. Because unless people develop confidence in this country, we'll be expecting too much if we will ask them to come and invest. If they cannot come and manage what they invest in, because they will be abducted or they will be shot. It's a very, very nasty situation we are in, but we cannot fold our arms and be complaining by the day. We have to do something about it, and we are doing our best. And we hope we'll have some luck in terms of getting more revenue, at least around the country. And in any case, we said we are going to spend 30% next financial year for capital projects. It was getting more than 90% overheads for how many years previously? when even the cost of petroleum products is for a barrel of petrol for a barrel is more than 70 American United States dollars.
No, but Mr. President, if you see the quantum, the 6 trillion budget, 70%, and then this other one, 4 trillion. If you look at the capital project, the capital vote for a 4 trillion budget, and the capital vote for a 6 trillion, it's still, the percentage is still high.
Yeah, it's because the percentage is high because you are not able to even pay the counter funding of projects. I'll give you one example. The agreement entered by previous government to do the railway from Lagos to Kaduna, and then they propose from Lagos to Calabar. Nigeria couldn't pay 30% or 25% of counter funding. China agreed to pay 75% over long years of minimal interest. You can't get a better deal anywhere in the world. But the previous government couldn't do it. Now we have to jack capital project by 30%, at least to meet this agreement, so that the railways can start working, people can get employment. Exactly.
Okay, we'll need to move on. But before we do, I must very quickly pick something that Mr. President said. In reference to the National Assembly, Mr. President mentioned that about 50 billion was being used or was being requested for buying vehicles.
No, I saw it in your papers. If you squeeze me, I'll get a copy for you. 47.something billion, you know, for vehicles, for cars.
The National Assembly.
Yes.
And Mr. President hasn't got the power or authority to stop that.
I think I will exploit that possibility of that power, because really, if I can turn down 400 million for the presidency, I say we don't need any new car. Let us manage the old one because of the economy. I can't see the National Assembly spending more than 45 billion to buy cars on top of transport allowance they collected. I have to revisit that story.
So in terms of budget for their transport allowance, what does that come up to then?
I don't know. It's get 100 billion.
So the kind of money that goes to the National Assembly, will Mr. President then say that Nigerians have the right attitude in terms of raising their voices against the National Assembly in the previous administration, and possibly will it be a continuation?
We have to look at conscientiously now and see, and maybe advise that we have to live within our means.
That will be an appeal to the National Assembly.
Yes.
Then.
Yes.
Okay.
These things come into the budget,
Yeah.
and they pass through your table. The 50 billion for vehicles.
No.
How do they appropriate?
They are the third tier of government. This is what we have to try and understand too. The executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. The legislature, if you go through the constitution, they have to agree on certain expenditure of the government.
Okay.
Even when they agree, when it comes to the executive, it has to go to National Executive Council. Federal Executive Council is approved. So if you are going to do things properly, there are checks and balances.
That's what I thought. Okay, so it comes through you as well.
No,
Their own expenditure.
If I refuse to agree for my own presidency, I will not agree for the National Assembly.
So who checks them? Who checks them, sir?
The judiciary. If somebody takes the case to the judiciary, if nobody takes it to the judiciary,
then get away with it.
Then we are at your mercy, the press. Find out the truth about it and inform Nigerians.
But the lawyers, the very big lawyers we have in the country, will talk of locals. You know, they said you don't have the locals, you don't have...
We have no local standing.
Yes, you don't have the locals.
You better have one. Otherwise you ruin the economy of the country.
Okay, Mr. President, I think we're approaching that point where we will start to take questions from social media. From the messages I'm getting, I understand we've got over 1,000 questions that have been raised. My analysts at Channels Television are giving me feedback that we've got over 1,000, so they're trying to collate and bring some of the most important ones. But I'll give it just a minute to get some of the most important questions that we will present to Mr. President to answer. But before we do that, in that 1 minute, can I ask this very, very important question? When the President was talking about bailout fund, we understand that 2 billion naira, or was it, yeah, it must be about 2 billion naira came from the Nigeria LNG. And that being the case, it means that Nigeria LNG is the golden goose that lays the golden egg for our economy, is one of the most successful of the organizations that government has a hand in the country. And we understand as well that NIMASA has been asking Nigeria LNG to pay $36 million every year, and they're extorting this money in spite of the fact that there's a court order that has said they should not be collecting this money until the court case is resolved. Is the President aware of this? And if you are, what do you think should be happening to NIMASA in view of what seemed like impunity?
Well, I'm very careful about things that are in court. I will have to ask for explanation about that. And NIMASA, as I told you now, that all the fast revenue creating institutions, the NNPC, custom exercise, NIMASA, and so on, have to credit whatever revenue they have in the Federation account, and then make their own budget, what they need, and then for the government to meet the budget. But the question of any parastatal or any part of the government to use what they earn and then give government the change will stop. They have to credit it, to the Federation account. But then they have to make a budget and submit it to the government. If it is too late, then we can go for supplementary budget, which means within the next quarter. But the question of them earning money, spending it, and giving government the change will have to stop.
Okay. Well, one of the questions that's just come up is that multiple agencies are created, and I know that there was a government decision before your administration came into office that a number of agencies will be merged to create some level of efficiency and enable government function in a very lean, mean way that gets more results. And one of those that's being mentioned too is Nigeria LNG, saying that they've got over 30 agencies that are serving as their regulators. And that being the case, it worries one that this big organization might not actually have the capacity to compete with international competitors. I mean, FMTI, DPR, Customs, Immigrations, NDLEA, SSS, FGN, surveyors, numbers goes on that are regulators regulating Nigeria LNG.
Yes, well, I think I have just mentioned that when we came in, there were 42 ministries. We were reduced to 24. Relatively, the number of councils were reduced. That will affect the number of parastatals. If you have 42 ministries, you are bound to have a lot more parastatals. When you cut it by half, not exactly half will go, but with merging and so on, you streamline the number of parastatals, which means you get less parastatals. And what you do, you get less boards and less administrative overhead. That's why we said all boards will go. except we have to go back on the universities one, because we find out they cannot appoint vice chancellors until it goes through the board. But otherwise, most of the boards have been dissolved, and now parastatals have to be realigned with the existing number of ministries, and then we can have boards for that. We are also looking how we can have less foreign missions. Can we afford all the ones we have now? If we have to have them, do we have to them in the strength they are supposed to have? We are looking at that. We are doing so many things at the same time, but the budgeting take priority. That's why some of the things are left until now after the budget. I think we are really very badly stretched economically. We are very badly stretched. But again, I believe our priorities is correct. Correct in the sense that we want to get infrastructure on the ground, led by power. Power. We need power. We need to get the roads done. If vehicles, trailers getting things from Lagos to Kano, they say take 20 days. I think there's some exaggeration. Maybe it will take a week or two. That's not good enough. Shouldn't be more than 3 days maximum. And you can't do the roads overnight. You can't build Mambila hydro overnight. But the Eggbin you have and others, you have to make sure that you secure the installation. Because when you start getting the gas to Eggbin, you start improving the power, then somebody will go and blows it up. So again, the problem of insecurity. Really, there is so much security problems, and it's for all Nigerians now to make sure that we become each other's keeper. We have to do something about security of the country.
Okay, Mr. President, let me take the first question from Twitter. This one is from someone who's got a hashtag saying Arts for a Better World. And he says, how would you respond to the criticism that it is counterproductive to rely on debt to finance 2016 budget? And he's making reference to the fact that it seems the amount of debt, both local and international, that is stated in the budget seems to be quite sizable.
I think if he reads it in detail, we are not depending on debt. It is for the 30% we say should go capital instead of less than 10%. What we are making is that we are renegotiating with those that have agreed to build infrastructure for us, especially the railways, especially to do the power gathering or gas gathering and storage and transportation, to renegotiate the agreement so that we pay over a longer period with less interest than what we have inherited. Otherwise, we wouldn't have anything in our hands as a government, to do capital projects. And without capital projects, that means the number of unemployment will only get worse. And that means, again, security will get worse. If you have able bodies doing nothing, I think even people accept the adage that an idle mind is a devil's workshop. We have to keep, especially the youth, employed. That's why we came out with this teacher training and posting them and so on. I don't think we have got an alternative other than to do what we are doing to create jobs, agriculture, this teaching facilities, and so on.
Okay, that leads me to the next question here. This one is from Peter's Magnificent. He says he is, and he says, please, Mr. President, what's in for education? Would you encourage entrepreneurship to be fostered in secondary and universities to ensure that young people are looking more at creating jobs rather than being employed?
Yeah, I think that is a possibility. I think, and we mentioned it in the tertiary institutions training, where people can use their hands and their initiative. Not white-collar jobs. Not everybody getting a degree, first, second degree, even third degree, and go and look for a job in the government or private sector. But people who can have some capital, and they start doing things with small workshops and so on. And I think some provision has been made, for borrowing money, including to market women and so on, that people with small amount of capital, they can employ 1 or 2 more people, and they give services to communities. I think we have to go back to that to reduce the number of unemployed. So the institution, one, they have to be rehabilitated, because the equipments, a lot of them are just in very, very bad shape. The equipments are either obsolete or they are not there. And then you have to look for the instructors. Where are they? People have everybody has moved into the cities and so on. So you have to get those institutions back. You have to get them equipped, and then.
When will there be budget for the schools to develop infrastructure then? Because
I think we put that amount, about 500 billion or so. I think it's in the budget.
And that is for infrastructure development in universities and secondary schools, not for paying salaries.
Not for paying salaries. Not for paying salaries.
Curriculum development.
Okay. The next question then is from Shuaibu Usman Ahmed, and he says, Mr. President, sir, what is your administration going to do about the many corrupt judges we currently have in our nation?
About the
many corrupt judges that we have. He's looking at the issue of judiciary and judges being bought and things like that.
I think I will discuss that with the Chief Justice. There are allegations really of corrupt judges. I think it takes two to a tango, they said it. When the tribunals are to come up, I think appeal was made to the judiciary to try and be impartial, because the judiciary has to work within time limit to listen to cases on tribunal and of these elections. But it has reached the high heaven, the scream by Nigeria about corruption in the judiciary. I think and this is something I think the government has to take with the judiciary itself. Let the judiciary look into it very hard. But the judiciary is virtually a sitting duck. It's what the police take to them, is what the lawyers present to them. So really to blame the judiciary, they are putting them in a very, very difficult position, because they cannot act on themselves. There must be contribution from other institutions for the judiciary to be corrupt.
But what would you say about those who are making the allegations that our judiciary is quite corrupt and somewhat?
Well, they have to prove it. This is why the judiciary is there. Let them make some sacrifice by trying and catching a judge, by either sending him marked money or something. Otherwise, how can you just sit and blame, say the judiciary is corrupt? It takes two to a tango, as they say. Somebody must be offering exactly before it's taken.
Very quickly then, because we've got over 1,000, let me take this one. Richard Galadima, he says, Mr. President, will the federal government, during your tenure, maintain the 18,000 Naira minimum wage?
Those are the type of questions that I cannot answer in an ad hoc way. I know NLC has been threatening that they will not rebut, but you also know that when we came in, we have to deal with an issue where 27 of the 36 states couldn't pay salaries in Nigeria. I wonder whether the Nigerian elite has recovered from that shock. 27 out of the 36 Nigerian states couldn't pay salaries. So the federal government has to sit with central banks through ways and means to give them money to go and pay salaries. I think that's the least the government can do. So the question on minimum wage, I don't think the federal government, I assure you, will not touch that. But to the state governments, we cannot do over the states. Every state, no state will agree to merge with another. Every state wants to stand on its own and to insist on having how many commissioners. If you could recall, there was a time we limit the number of commissioners to 8, 7 or 8. Now some of the states have more commissioners than the federal government ministries.
So if Nigerians are pushing for states to be merged, will Mr. President support that push?
We have to go back to the Constitution and see how that it is done. My personal opinion shouldn't be relevant.
Okay. Eugene Nath Enoma says, Mr. President, please, how does the presidency hope to collate data of unemployed youths and pay them the 5,000 naira stipend that you promised? And meanwhile, did you promise that, Mr. President? Was that your promise or a party promise?
When my BP is quoted, how can I come here and and disown it? Firstly, I believe in in trying to have facts. How many are involved? How are you going to do it? Is it state by state or geopolitical by geopolitical zone? And even one of the graduates, indeed when they claim, oh, will you try and get his certificate, cross-check with the university he you know, Nigerians were a very, very difficult lot. In trying to get to the bottom of the problem, there's a lot of work that has to be done. And if this is undertaken, as it alleged in it is in our manifesto, we have to look at it very hard. And that's why we have to virtually, probably involuntarily have to send people on the farm. Okay, go and earn your 5,000 a month by working in one of the large farms and so on.
So at what point should we expect to see the start of the collation of those young people who are obviously indigent and unable to fend for themselves and desperately in need of this 5,000 naira that Mr. President
We have
promised?
to give that job, unfortunately, to the Ministry of Labor and Productivity.
When will they have the job? Because at the moment it doesn't look like they're doing anything about
Well,
it.
the Ministry of Labor has to try to lead in this government promise, because that is the executive ministry.
Okay. We have another one here where first one on international. T. Naye, he says the proposed ban on international transactions on MasterCard will negatively affect plans to pursue international certification. And he's referring to the fact that he's a student and he will not be able to do transactions to make even basic payment because of this. And if a young man, as we have on social media, have situations where they cannot study abroad, they cannot pay their school fees, they cannot even buy forms online because they cannot do transactions that include foreign currency, then it looks like it's a dire situation they find themselves.
It is. It is. And during our course of discussion, I mentioned that the system of using the card has been so thoroughly abused. The central bank has got, I think, some of these issues. But I don't believe the government should sit and blame those that are abusing the system to deny citizens the opportunity, to continue. We are not talking of the new ones. We are talking of the ones that are already there as students. Therefore, there's a commitment for them. And I believe the Ministry of Education, the Central Bank, the Ministry of Finance will have to sit down and quickly gather the data and see how much the government can take for those that are already outside. The question of new ones, I think will receive less priority than those that are already there, because they have to continue. Otherwise, they may lose a semester or something like that.
Okay. Architect Michael Azimi, whose name on Twitter is Obeme101, he says we need to have a situation where we have 60% of the budget spent on capital projects. Will Mr. President commit to making this happen before the end of your tenure in 2019?
I'm going to pray very hard and work very hard that to happen, because no matter how much I try, if the cost of crude oil keep on going down, it will not be possible. And I like to remember the adage one of my senior officers put on top of his back of him. When you come before him, what you will see is, work so hard as if it were up to you, and pray so hard as if it were up to God. So this is the position we find ourselves in Nigeria. You have to work extremely hard and you have to pray very hard. But the situation, as I said, is not very nice. And our fallback position, we realized it early enough, is go back to the land. Go back to the land for a lot of able-bodied person and the solid minerals. And that we are working very hard behind the scene to get investments in those two fields.
Okay, Wale Aduroja, I guess, is a sports fan. He's concerned. His concern is that, Mr. President, on the allocation of Ministry of Youths and Sports, is asking what's the allocation for Ministry of Youths and Sports as regards Rio 2016?
I can't remember. I can't remember individual allocation, especially he is concerned to youth and sports. But what I knew, and I thank God I was not disappointed, when I got a recommendation for the youth going for the, those who won the, is it under 17? Yeah, and other activities towards the next Olympic. I knew I approved it without any questions, so that we don't, cause problem. And we thank God that they have succeeded, and we earned, the cup.
Okay. Very quick question then, before we take a final round of questions from the panel here. This gentleman here, AJ Peter, says, what is Mr. President's plan for tertiary education? Is there one? Universities are in a state that is quite disturbing.
Yes, the standard of tertiary institutions and the universities, unfortunately, is poor. There is need for a lot of capital projects to be done in terms of accommodation, in terms of laboratories, equipment, and workshops, in terms of number of classrooms. I don't like the idea of having university people sitting on a window and taking and listening to lecturers. Again, we have.
So what's the plan for them to ensure that they're not sitting around the windows and corridors?
We have to build more classrooms. We have to equip them. You have to make life tolerable for teachers. I believe in the last 16 years, the country earned enough money. I don't think it has been judiciously used, unfortunately. Unfortunately.
So we've not used the money well. Okay, we'll have one question each, but we'll make it very short because we've got very limited time. Ngozi, have your first shot.
Mr. President, I'm going back to the governance issue in Nigeria. A lot of things are going to happen. We're anticipating in 2016 from the way you talk. And we know that the media is aware because, after all, you work with us. But the civil servants are actually the human beings in the back room, so to say, who are the implementers. And we're not sure how in tune they are with the new philosophy, with the new culture as a matter of fact, being human beings, I expect that there should be a conscientious, deliberate drive to get them on board, for them to really be as passionate, maybe not as passionate as you, but to understand the new culture, the new ethics that you're trying to drive. Because you cannot do it alone. Those human beings are supposed to implement. So I'm looking at something like training, consistent training down the line of the civil service. Is there anything planned towards that?
Well, I will accept that the system in the bureaucracy for training and retraining is in place. Nobody has removed it. The correct entry point, what institutions to go. The civil servants even have exams.
In terms of the new culture, sir, the new culture of change.
We have the new culture of change. You can legitimize it by making the civil service more efficient, and more efficiency means training. You have to train them more. But the important thing is them to try to understand the position the country finds itself. The adage that no need crying over spilled milk is correct, but then a lot of damage has been done. And people have to be prepared at all levels, at all stages, to make the necessary sacrifice, working very hard, expecting small return.
Mr. President, they were there when all the damage was done. So
we've got just about
I'm
3 more minutes, and I would want Manuel to get his own last shot.
Okay.
Manuel, please go ahead.
Yes, Mr. President, you spoke about reform of the oil sector. I know there had been this issue of the eventual breaking up of the NNPC, the PIB, and all of that. I mean, since it's a priority of your administration, when is that going to begin to happen? When are we going to see the draft bill taken to the National Assembly, and do you have a time frame within which to achieve it?
Well, we are doing a lot at the same time, simultaneously. NNPC is the proverbial cow. But if you look critically at this year's budget or next year's budget, you find out that we depend more on FAS and other institutions for the much more than oil. This was forced on Nigeria because of the falling price. But we believe if we are going to realize what we are exporting with strict transparency and accountability, we'll be surprised by the end of the year if the oil appreciates to at least $50 per barrel, how much we can meet our debt servicing and probably capital budget allocation. Because these are very important. Debt servicing, especially external, to earn more confidence of those who want to help us. If we pay them as we agreed in our transactions, that will help us a lot. And then if we perform in the capital allocation, that means more people will be employed, more goods and services will be produced. It's a vicious circle which we have to break, unfortunately for the government.
Your question very short and precise.
I'll try as much as possible. Mr. President, the State Security Service has consistently, since you came in, disobeyed court orders. I can mention Kayode Are, I can mention Sambo Asuku has about 3 bails and is still being arrested. I can mention Patrick Bole Kemi. I can go on and on, Nnamdi Kanu of Biafra agitation. These people have legitimate bails from court, and then they're still being held. Are you not worried? And then, secondly, sir, why do you distance? Okay, all right, sir.
I think, are you a lawyer?
I'm a journalist, sir.
You must be a pocket lawyer then. Technically, if you see the type of atrocities those people committed, I'm very sorry to say this publicly, against the country. If they jump bail, if say the former president just wrote to the governor central bank and said, give 40 billion naira, 40 billion to so. And then he fails to account it, and you give him bail, or you ask him to go and see his doctor in London. While you have 2 million people in IDPs, half of them, they don't even know their parents. Which kind of country do you want to run? And the one we are calling Kanu, do you know he has 2 passports? One Nigerian, one British, and he came to this country without using any passport. Do you know he brought an equipment into this country, a sophisticated equipment, and was broadcasting for Radio Biafra? Which kind of government do you want to have?
But we wrote an editorial against it in Premium Times.
What?
Premium Times wrote editorial against his radio station and called on the federal government to stop that
So I
hate
think
speech.
he should be given bail to go away. There's a treasonable felony against him, and I hope the court will listen to the case.
Okay, Your Excellency, well, we do have to wrap up from all I can see, but I think we have just about enough time for one quick one, which is on this issue of Biafra. What is your thought on it? Yes, you have your perception of Nnamdi Kanu, but the large number of young people from the southeast that we have seen that are demonstrating and chanting, doesn't it worry Mr. President that this could escalate and become
It will
something
worry
else?
me when I have the militants, I have the Boko Haram, and another group is Imagine they want Biafra. They say they are marginalized, but they haven't defined the extent of marginalization. Who is marginalizing them? Where? Do you know?
They believe they're marginalized.
Yes, how?
And it's their perception.
Marginalized how?
Mr. President, immediately you appointed your aides, and they felt an Igbo man was not there, somebody from the east was not there, and then the 2 persons, Obonayano and Chris Ngige, just got back, in spite of the fact that they feel they are the 3rd largest ethnic group in Nigeria. And then those are the 2 positions they have.
It's not a question of ethnicity. It's a question of the Constitution. I am limited by what the Constitution said. There must be a member of Executive Council from each state. The rest, there's a lot of partisan politics in it. Who is the Minister of State for Petroleum? Is he not an Igbo? Who is the Governor of Central Bank?
From Delta.
Is he not an Igbo? Who is the Minister of Labor? Who is the Minister of Science and Technology? Who is the Junior Minister of Education? I don't think of any House of Fulani or any Yoruba who serve in virtually cabinet positions as the Igbos have. So what do they want? You want me to put my gown down so that I bring somebody in? I stood at an election and I won. And I'm limited by the Constitution. I have a member of every state in the Executive Council, and I have to listen to him as I sit at the chairman.
Okay,
That is the limit the Constitution gave me.
Okay, Your Excellency, we want to say thank you very much for sparing these 2 hours to be on, to have this conversation with Nigerians and with us, especially those of us who are here. Dr. Ngozi Anyegbunam, Manir Dan Ali, and of course, Ibanga Isene. Myself, Kaidi Akintemi, want to say thank you very much, Your Excellency, for the time spent with us.
Very, very kind of you. I hope they switched up. What I will appeal to you is please ask our colleagues to do more investigative journalism. People, whether they like it or not, believe the press. But on important issues, I expect investigative journalism so that people will know the truth and then react to it, rather than being sensational.
We say thank you very much for watching, wherever you are watching. Mr. President, we thank you, and we hope that this will happen again very soon. Thank you very much, and good evening.